Conversation is going round. People talking about the colors come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Fresh Waves. We have a terrific show lined up today. As everyone knows, April is Organ Donation Awareness Month, and we are continuing with our Organ Donation Awareness Month series. This morning, we are really privileged to have Ronnie Gavsey with us online because we're not in the studio anymore. So she's online. She's the president and CEO of the Trillium Gift of Life Network. Good morning, Ronnie, and welcome to Fresh Waves.
Thank you, Brenda.
It's lovely to have you here. We were privileged to talk to you last year as well. And it's nice to build every year and find out what's going on and to keep organ donation awareness alive. I know we've had some people actually phone me knowing that I was going to do this show and say, are you sure you should be doing this show this year? Is this something we really want to be talking about? So I'll ask you, is this something we want to be talking about during this COVID-19 and coronavirus pandemic?
I think we want to be talking about it more than ever. If we were ever in a time where we wanted to help each other, show each other that we care, this is the way to do it. When we register consent for donation, we're telling all those on the wait list, that's 1,600 people waiting for a medically urgent, life-saving transplant. We would help you if we could. We're giving them hope.
That's actually a nice way.
This is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. And to have that kitchen table conversation because everybody happens to be home. I know in my house, my kids are all in their 20s and they all happen to be living back at home.
That's right. You're all together and you have time together and you realize how lucky you all are. And it's a time to recognize that there are others who are not as lucky and think about what you can do for them. And this is something you can do within less than 2 minutes. Go to beadonor.ca and register consent. Show the people on the wait list you would help them if you could. You care. You'll give them hope.
Okay, now are there any transplants happening during this pandemic?
Oh yes, transplants are proceeding. They're proceeding on a case-by-case basis. There are some temporary pauses in transplant program activity to protect the health and well-being of the recipients. But yes, they're proceeding, and those who are in immediate need of a transplant still have the potential to receive one. So yes, they continue.
Okay, that's what I thought, although you do hear things now and again, you know, people saying, oh no, they're not doing any, because when you have a transplant, you're on immune suppressant drugs, and then that leaves the people vulnerable. But people die every day waiting for a transplant, don't they?
They do, and wherever a patient is in, imminent need, where they're rapidly deteriorating and there's no deferral that possible, they will get a transplant. But at the same time, the physicians are always weighing the risk to that recipient of getting a transplant, given exactly what you said, that they are immunosuppressed when they get a transplant, and here they are in the era of a pandemic.
Yeah, it's really bad timing in a lot of respects, isn't it? Now, those people that are on dialysis and doing quite well on dialysis, waiting for a kidney, those kinds of things are the ones that are being postponed, correct?
They are, and again, unless they become if they very much deteriorate, then if there is a match, we will go ahead with the transplant.
Okay. Now, what about people who, unfortunately, we know that there are people who are dying of COVID-19. Are they eligible to be donors?
No, all donors are screened and tested for COVID-19. So we would not transplant an organ from a donor who tested positive.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. Well, what's going on in Ontario this year? When I spoke with you last year, we had just had across Canada the Logan Boulet effect. And unfortunately, Logan was one of the boys who passed away in the Humboldt crash. And he had
Yes.
donated his organs. He'd made it clear to his parents that that's what he wanted to do should that ever happen. And they donated his organs, and he was able to save 6 people, I think, with the donation of his organs. And it also spurred a massive movement across this country where 200,000 people signed up almost immediately to be organ donors. What's happened since last year?
Well, you're absolutely correct. His saving of 6 lives motivated and inspired so many tens and hundreds of thousands of people to register consent. And in fact, April 7th was the day that he donated his organs, and that date is commemorated as Green Shirt Day every year, where people are asked to wear green shirts and take selfies of themselves and their families and register consent in his honor and in his family's honor. However, it takes a tragedy or a hero of some sort to inspire people to take action. And we will see an increase in registration for a period of time after, but then it subsides, which is why it is so important that we constantly talk about it and remind people that it's our friends and our neighbors and our family members who are waiting for a medically urgent transplant. We don't want another tragedy to happen to spur people to register. We should do it now. We should do it today. It's important to do it now. Now, we have seen the registration rate go up, but it goes up slowly. It takes over 100,000 net new registrations for the percentage point to go up 1%. So today the province is at 35%. 35% of those who are 16 years of age or older and have an OHIP number have registered consent. And in fact, that is the average registration rate for Witcher-Stouffville as well.
Oh, that's good.
You're on par, and that is good. You're a good example. But also within your area, there are 6 residents who are on that medically urgent wait list. It's
Yes.
not happening somewhere else. It's happening in your own neighborhood. So important that you think about registering for the sake of those people.
I can't agree with you more. And it's kind of eye-opening. I mean, until I started researching for the show today, I had no idea that there were 6 people in Stouffville currently waiting for organs. And that's staggering. Of course, I know Jason. Jason's our technical producer of Freshwaves, and he's waiting on a kidney. And I guess I kind of thought that he was the only one. So it's interesting to know that there's 6 people. Wow. So have the numbers gone up generally in Canada since the Logan Boulet effect? Have we noticed a steady increase, or not so much?
It's a very slow path to increase to what we would think would be a indication that we were a culture of donation, which would be 50%. But we went a year ago from 34%. We're now at 35%. So it is a slow climb, and it's so important that people be educated. It takes more. They need to hear it more than once.
Mm-hmm.
They hear it, they think about it, forget about it, then they'll hear about it again. That may motivate the person to talk with others about it, and then they hear about it a third time and potentially then take action. So we cannot let up on the advocacy and the education of the importance of.
What about the people who signed up 30 years ago on the organ donor card that used to come with your license? Do those cards, are they still valid?
No, they're not. They're cards that were kept in a wallet or kept in a drawer and just not found in time. So people who think they're registered because they signed that card that used to come a few years back with the driver's license need to know that they must register officially, and they can do so in a number of easy ways. They can go to beadonor.ca, and within less than 2 minutes, as long as you have your OHIP card number in front of you, you can register. Or you can download the form and fill it in by hand and mail it in. You can also go to any Service Ontario office and register there. And when you get a renewal of your photo health card or your driver's license, the form will be in the envelope, and you will be motivated through that and inspired through that and reminded through that to fill it in and send it in. There are a lot of triggers to remind you.
Yeah. What if people say, well, I'm too old. I'm too old to donate an organ.
You know, there have been donors over 100 years old.
What? Really?
There have been donors over 100 years old.
Wow.
None of that, age is not an issue. You will be medically tested. Every one of us will be tested for medical suitability. And you know, you could save 8 lives through organ donation. You could save many, many more through tissue donation, which includes eyes, skin, heart valves, bone. So nobody should think they are too old or that any previous medical condition should preclude them or would preclude them from being a donor and saving the lives of others. Every one of us will be tested for medical suitability. So let's not rule ourselves out.
That's a good point. Now, I'm going to ask you an interesting question that I received from one of our listeners. And she wants to remain anonymous because she said it's a horrible question to ask. But she said in the past, she has encouraged her husband specifically not to donate because she wants to have him cremated and she wants to scatter his ashes. And she's afraid that if he's an organ donor, there won't be anything left for her to scatter.
Well, we can reassure her that she can follow through with her plans exactly as she had planned them. When donors, some families want an open casket. They can have an open casket. Those who want to cremate their loved ones can go ahead. Only the organs are taken, and the patient is then, how can I put it, sewn up so that whatever is the plan of that family and their traditions or their wishes can be followed. Please reassure her.
I will. I'll have her listen to this so she can hear it from you.
All right.
Now, when we're talking about organ donation, what exactly does the Trillium Gift of Life Network do? What is your role in this whole process?
So we are the province of Ontario's agency that is mandated to not only undertake certain parts of the organ donation process, but to coordinate it right across the province. So we have staff numbering in about 300 all around the province, including some critical care nurses who are embedded in hospitals, who look after the donors and donor families. And we have to be notified of every death. And once we're notified, we set into motion a very fragile, time-sensitive process that includes partners right around the province, critical care doctors and nurses, transplant physicians and all of their staff, transportation, Orange, for example, ambulance services, planes, vans, police services to help us move organs from a donor site, which may be in one part of the province, to where the recipient is in another part of the province. Trillium Gift of Life Network manages the wait list. We hold the wait list, and we also allocate organs so that we make sure that each organ goes to the most medically urgent matching recipient on the Ontario wait list. Or if there is no recipient that matches in Ontario, we go elsewhere in the province. And if at that point there's no match, we go to the US and vice versa. So this is a 24/7 operation, 365 days of the year. And it is a complex process, but done like a symphony orchestra, because our partners throughout the province work in tremendous harmony to make sure that wherever a life can be saved, it is.
That's fabulous. Now, what about province to province?
Yes, we share organs with other provinces. For example, highly sensitized patients who are kidney patients, very difficult to match, are on a national wait list. It's managed by Canadian Blood Services, and all provinces, when we have a donor with 2 kidneys, 1 kidney will, if it's a match to someone on that highly sensitized list, that's where it will go, no matter where in Canada that patient resides. So we
Wow.
do share organs right across Canada.
Fabulous. Now, tell me, what happened with Nova Scotia? I believe it was Nova Scotia that went to the consent that was assumed consent. So you didn't have to go to beadonor.ca. You're just assumed that you're a donor, and you have to fill out a form if you don't wish to be a donor. Have they had much success with that?
Well, at this point, they're still moving in that direction. It isn't done yet.
Oh,
It's
I see.
Yes, it's called presumed consent. And just as you described, it will be assumed unless a person indicates otherwise that he or she is a donor or willing to be a donor if suitable. We are all watching very carefully to see how this is going to work. We in Ontario have studied this question constantly. We constantly study it and do research in other jurisdictions that have presumed consent. And to date, what we've learned is that it isn't the silver bullet that it sounds like it would be. And it isn't because families still have to be approached. They need to be approached because there's medical history they have to provide that the medical team needs. And the family could say, well, my father didn't understand what he wasn't doing when he didn't opt out. He didn't read the fine print, or he wouldn't understand. So a family can still stop it. And there are no jurisdictions that are actually reporting through the research that presumed consent alone will cause the number of transplants to go up. However, it does appear that where there is very solid infrastructure on the ground, there's already a culture of donation, so people are positive about it, that presumed consent at that point might add material value. So I know that Nova Scotia, the Premier of Nova Scotia made it very clear publicly that he understood that presumed consent in itself was not the answer, but they had to also invest in infrastructure on the ground. So we're all watching and wanting to learn from this experience that Nova Scotia will go through.
I think it's really interesting to take a look, and what you were saying, it's a good point. The infrastructure on the ground, a part of that, I believe, is education. So the organ donation awareness, what we're focusing on Freshwaves this month, is a lot of the stories of people who have been in the horrid, most awful position in life of having to go through the death of a loved one, especially the death of a child, but making the unselfish decision to become an organ donor. And we have people on the show who have been in that situation. We also have the people who've received organs and who are living a wonderful life now because of receiving organs. And I think those stories are really powerful. And you hear these relatively young people who now have a whole life ahead of them because someone was thoughtful enough to to donate an organ. And I think that's the good messages that are out there.
Yes, and the most meaningful, hearing from, as you said, a 13-year-old who's flourishing, enjoying life, who had a heart transplant at 3 months old, or a donor family who say it was the only thing that gave them some light, some feeling that they were honoring their loved one and that their loved one was leaving a legacy, and they never regret it and they never forget it, and they're pleased with the decision that they made. So it's never surprising that a recipient, of course, is grateful, but it continually astounds me happily at how grateful donor families are.
Yes, on both sides. And it does take that kitchen table or dining room table conversation, doesn't it, to get everybody to know your wishes.
It does, and it isn't a subject which people have easily or
Yes.
naturally, but with education and advocacy, more and more people are having that conversation. And now, in this period, in this era we're living in, this is the time to have it.
I think so too. Well, I know that your time is really precious, and we are pre-recording this show on Green Shirt Day, and you have a lot of interviews and a lot of things to do today. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. We thank you so much for spending the time to talk to our little radio station in Stouffville, Ontario.
Brenda, it's my greatest pleasure to do so.
We really enjoyed having you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yesterday was Green Shirt Day in Canada. Green Shirt Day is a day dedicated to organ donation awareness and inspired by Logan Boulet. Logan Boulet passed away in 2018 in the Humboldt bus crash. Logan will always be an inspiration to millions of people in this country. Over 200,000 people signed on as organ donors after Logan passed away, and Logan made it clear to his parents before his passing that he wanted to be an organ donor should anything ever happen to him. His parents honored his wishes, and this year his sister speaks out on Green Shirt Day, honoring her brother, Logan Boulet.
Hi everyone, my name is Mariko Boulet and I'm from Lethbridge, Alberta. My brother is the incredible Logan Boulet. April 6th and April 7th, 2018 were the worst days of my family and so many other people's lives. April 7th was the day that we had to say goodbye to Logan, the person that I never thought I'd have to live without, my favorite person in the entire world. It was the worst day of my life. But April 7th also marked the day that Logan became an organ donor, and he created and started the Logan Boulet effect. It's an incredible story that came out of the worst possible thing that could have ever happened to so many people. I am proud of Logan. I am proud to be a sister. I am so incredibly proud of my family. What does Green Shirt Day mean to me? Green Shirt Day is a day for hope, for renewal, for inspiration. It's a day to remember a boy whose life was lost way too soon. It's a day to remember the Humboldt Broncos and 15 other people's lives who were lost way too soon. It's a day to remember and think about the 13 boys who are still writing their story. It's a day to sit down, think about, do I want to become an organ donor? What do I want done with my organs when I pass away? It's a day to have that kitchen table talk with your family, your loved ones, and those that are most important to you. Green Shirt Day is a day that I get to spend thinking about my brother and who he was to me. I do that every single day, but it's a special day that everyone gets to think about him. I miss him so much, but I am so incredibly proud of him, and I am proud of my family. Thank you.
This is Freshwaves, and we are so happy to have Jason Rumball, who is normally behind the mic and far, far away working on the technical aspects of the show. We're happy to have you join us as a guest, Jason. You have quite the story, and being that this is Organ Donation Awareness Month in Canada, it's a great opportunity for you to get out from behind the technical aspects of this show and tell us your story. Welcome, Jason.
Oh, thank you so much, Bren. And my story has from the last time we did the show has another chapter to it. But I'll go back to when I was born. I was born with one kidney, and I also had a history of other medical problems as well. Like you can, my great aunt was born with one kidney, and you can do perfectly fine with one kidney. But I was also born with spina bifida and also bladder problems as well. Like I can't empty my bladder on my own, so I have to use a catheter to empty my bladder. And with all these problems coming together, it can increase your risk of kidney problems. So over time, I would go down to sick kids down in Toronto for tests on my kidney, my bladder, and to see the other specialist. And I also went to the Hugh McMillan Center as well. So over the years as a kid, I was closely monitored with my bladder function and my kidney function. So slowly, over time, the kidney was failing, not to my knowledge, but was going to college at the time. I was 21 years old, very sick. I had no idea that my kidney was failing at this point. I had all the symptoms that are quite similar to the flu: nausea, vomiting, that sort of thing, feeling tired, weak, headache, that sort of thing. And I would go to college and try to manage the stress of a college, the courses and everything. And one day I went for a routine eye exam, and from the eye exam, the doctor said, "You're bleeding in your eye. You need to go to the hospital." So I went to the hospital, and they knew there was something wrong, but then they sent me home. They didn't check my vital signs, or I thought that was kind of odd that they wouldn't do that. And my regular family doctor, he didn't really look into my medical history at all. He just said, "Oh, you got the flu, don't worry about it, you'll be fine." And so when I went to the hospital about this bleeding in my eye, so they didn't check it. So I went and saw an eye specialist a couple of days after. So went through the weekend still, not feeling too well. And he did a whole bunch of eye tests on me. And then he said, "I'm going to check your blood pressure. Have you had your blood pressure checked in a while?" And I said, "No." So he checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure is very high. It's 220 over 130. It's quite serious. So he said,
that's a really high blood pressure.
Yeah. So he said, "You have to go to the hospital right away. You're very sick right now." So I went to the hospital, and that's where they took things seriously. They did a whole bunch of tests on me: blood pressure, vital signs, blood tests, that sort of thing, and things, when the blood test came back, it showed that my kidney function was not doing so good at all. Like one of the things that they do to measure your kidney function is called creatinine level, and that gives you an overall level of your kidney function. And normally it's between 50 and 110 for males, somewhere around that range. And mine was 705, so they knew my kidney was failing.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so at that point, they called in a kidney specialist, and he kind of took things over from there. My potassium level was way up, and when your potassium level gets that high, it can cause heart problems. So they gave me medication to bring that down, and they tried their best to restore the kidney function, but it was too late. So they said, eventually you're going to need dialysis. We're going to refer you to a dialysis clinic in Richmond Hill, what they used to call York Central Hospital. So I went to their dialysis clinic and saw the kidney doctor, the nephrologist there, and so from that point, that's when we knew that I needed dialysis. That my kidney function was it was going to keep getting worse, and that I need dialysis. So shortly after seeing the kidney doctor, they had to do an operation on my arm because they needed to get access to my body for dialysis. So they put in what they call a fistula, where they connect a vein and an artery together. And over about 8 weeks, it can develop where you do dialysis. So about a few months after that operation, I started dialysis in March of '98, and I would go to the hospital 3 times a week, and I would start it off at 3.5 hours, and then as my symptoms got a little bit more worse, I had some fluid around my heart and stuff like that, so they had to increase my dialysis time because when your kidney isn't working well, fluids can build up in the body as well as toxins, so they had to increase my dialysis time. So I was there 3 times a week, for about 4 hours per day. Still I was still going to college at the time, so I still had to. I was hoping to graduate in 2 years, but I ended up graduating in 3 years just because of my just with all the health issues I was going through. So I had to delay my college graduation, and so trying to keep up with my college courses. I take my homework to dialysis and work on it there. And so I did dialysis for about a year and 9 months, and actually I graduated from college while on dialysis. I remember getting a picture with my kidney doctor and the social worker, and then I'd go after my treatment. I went off to my my graduation, graduated from college, and so that was my routine for a year and 9 months to do this dialysis, and then doing this for a year and 9 months, and then I was in the kitchen with my sister for my 23rd birthday, and she surprised me with the greatest news ever, that she was going to save my life with a kidney.
That's an amazing gift.
Yeah. I had no idea she was going to do this. She, St. Mike's, a very well-known transplant hospital. She went down there to talk to the nurses and just kind of get some advice on, what, a kidney donor, goes through, and, all the pros and cons and that sort of thing. And they told her that, your own sibling is your best match for a kidney. So at first she had a young child at the time, only 5 years old, so she's kind of thinking of that and thinking of the family and kind of the what if scenarios, like what if this doesn't work. And then she kind of got this epiphany that this is going to work. I'm going to help my brother. She she didn't like all the times that I've been in the hospital with my other problems. She couldn't really do anything about it. Now, seeing me on dialysis, she had the opportunity to step in and remove me from dialysis. She thought, Jay's just a young guy. He's got so much life to live, and he doesn't need to be hooked up to a machine. I can do something and save his life. And so yeah, she told me the news on my 23rd birthday, and about a few months after that, we had the transplant January 18th, 2000. And that lasted for almost 20 years, a good 19 and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah.
Now you're back on dialysis.
Now I'm back on dialysis. So, but when we, went through the transplant, seeing the doctors, they, said because of my complex medical conditions that, the kidney would probably last 10 years. So it's quite amazing that I was able to outlast that by an extra 9.5 years. So, these 9.5 years was really a bonus to be able to exceed that. And I've always exceeded doctors' expectations. They they predicted that I wasn't going to live to see my first birthday, and I here I am. I'm 43 now, and I'm back on dialysis, but I'm able to manage despite what I'm doing. Like, I'm able to do these radio shows and try to live life as much as I can, but I obviously dialysis is a routine that I have to do. I have to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 4 hours, and so trying to manage the best way I can.
And so what's the prognosis?
Well, right now the prognosis is good. Like, I am eligible for another transplant, and I have been very open on social media, telling everybody what I've been going through, and I'm hoping to maybe find a living donor, but that's it's I think it's a little bit of a challenge to do that, because I know it's a big commitment for somebody to go through this sort of thing, and I think it's important for if anybody wants to help myself or anybody that's needing a kidney, to understand what a living donor goes through. And so that's where my sister had to ask a lot of questions of the transplant team, and just know what the pros and cons are of donating a kidney, because it's amazing that you can donate while you're still alive. I mean, they you can donate your organs when you pass away, and there's a website, beadonor.ca, where you can go on there. Takes 2 minutes to register. You have your health card handy, and you put your health card information, and then you can do it that way. And right now, they say that the highest demand is for kidneys. So if I don't find a living donor, if I end up, I'm on the list right now, and they say the average wait is between 2 and 5 years. So
for a cadaver donor.
For a cadaver donor. So I could be doing this dialysis 3 times a week for 4 hours per treatment for a while if a living donor doesn't come forward. So
give us an idea of what dialysis is. I know a lot of people have heard the term before, but many of us, since we don't have that in our lives, don't know what dialysis is. Tell us about dialysis.
Dialysis, it acts like your own kidney in a way. So what the kidney is supposed to do normally is filter out the excess toxins. Like your body can handle a certain amount of toxins, but when the kidney's not working well, it can build up in the system. So the dialysis machine is a filter, and it has the chemicals to keep your body in balance, the proper pH balance, and to remove the excess creatinine. And urea is also another important element of kidney function that can get too high when the kidney's not working well. So that removes the urea. It regulates your potassium level, your phosphorus, salt, and it can also remove excess fluid because for a lot of people that don't have kidney function, they can't go number 1 anymore. So the fluids can build up in the body. So when you're not, on the dialysis machine, you have to be very careful of your diet, how much what you're eating, how much fluid you're consuming, and but during the dialysis machine, like, it's an endless cycle. Like for a fistula or for whatever port you have, like right now I have a central venous catheter in my chest. So one port takes the toxic blood out of the system, and it goes through the filter, and then it's returned to the body. So it's cleaned through the filter and everything, and then put back through the body. And then during the session, the nurses monitor your blood pressure, because for some, the blood pressure can go up or it can go down. You can get cramps while you're on the machine. You can get like a headache and that sort of thing. So they monitor you very closely. They check your temperature and make sure that your body is handling the treatment after a while. So this for some people, it depends on your body type or your kidney function. Some people are on the machine for 3.5 hours, or some are on for 4, and there's different methods where you can do dialysis overnight, and you can have the machine cycling for 8 hours or as much as you need it. So, but for me, it's 4 hours for my treatment, 3 times a week.
That's a big time commitment.
So
what do you do while you're there? Are you lying down or sitting up?
Yeah, well, I'm sitting up, and like back 20 years ago, they didn't have TVs in the unit, so I used to bring in the VCR, VHS tapes to watch movies and things like that, and now they have TVs there, so I'll watch the Leaf game or the Raptor game, or I have access to my phone, so I'll be on my phone, and while you're there, you kind of get to know the patients and the nurses, so you're there.
It's a bit of a social club.
Yeah,
but don't for any 1 minute think that it's something that you would like to do for any length of time. You want to get off dialysis as soon as you can.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure, it's not pleasant to be there, but I think while I'm there, I try to make the most of it.
Exactly. But you do that and try and make the most of it no matter where you are in your life. That's one of the things we love about you. That's why we call you Happy J. Happy J all the way.
That's great.
So when you're in dialysis, you can't get up and walk around. You're tied down to a machine. Okay.
Yeah.
And normally you don't even have the use of one of your arms, because if you pull on the machine, it'll come apart. Or
the machine is very sensitive. So like say for my fistula, like now that I have this catheter, I have the use of both arms, but for fistula, like at first you have to be very careful not to bend your arm, because that can cause the machine to kink or cause the needles to you can have problems with your arm and that sort of thing. So you have to be very careful, as the machine is quite sensitive that way. So
and then you can't, it's not like you can spend that 4 hours returning emails and things like that, because normally you only have one arm.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to try to make the most of what you can do, and so it's just a matter of getting used to using the one arm.
And but what I'm saying is, it's people think, oh well, so you can't move for 4 hours. That's okay. You could get things done while you're there, but you really can't.
No, that's true.
You're really just tied to a machine, and you can't do anything for 4 hours.
No, of course not. No. I mean,
now, when they say 4 hours, is that a true 4 hours, or does it take them a little while to get you started and then a little while to unwind you? So to speak?
There's some prep time to get you set up. So when I come in, like the first thing I do is I get my weight, because I want to know what your weight is before dialysis, so they know how much fluid is on you, and then they can program in the machine. Oh, that Jason's 2 kilograms over his what they call a dry weight, where that's the weight that your body should be when there's no excess fluid. So I tell them what my weight is. They take my temperature. Have you had any falls or any bleeding? So because they put a blood thinner through the machine. So if you have any falls or bleeding, that can with a blood thinner, that can make things even worse. So so they ask you how are you feeling? Are you feeling okay? Any concerns for the doctor? The doctor comes around once a week. So there's a little bit of prep time to put you on the machine. And if you have a fistula, that's where, like, now that I have this catheter, the time after is not so bad. Like they once they return all the clean blood to your body, they just disinfect the catheter, make sure everything's all okay. And but with the fistula, because the artery and the vein are connected, that can cause bleeding afterwards once the needle comes out. So once the needle comes out, you have to press on the site, and that takes about a good 10-15 minutes or whatever to make sure the bleeding is stopped. They just make sure that you're fine to go home. And then like before, I had like a strap around my arm just to keep pressure on it, so in case something happened in the ride on the way home, that everything would be fine. So for fistulas, there's a little bit of time afterwards to make sure that you're okay before you can go home.
Right, but fistula seems to be the method of choice.
Right.
Like they would rather give you a fistula than not. So I guess that's probably because there's more of a risk of infection, is there, in the chest one?
There is, definitely. And for some people, like their veins aren't as well. Like you can use your natural vein, but you can also use a tubing. So they could put a tube under there, and they call that a graft. And but for some people, you try a fistula, you try a graft, and when those options aren't possible, then they have no choice but to put the catheter in, and they monitor you quite closely for infections. You, like with this now, I have to be careful in the shower not to get it wet. I can't go swimming with it. So that's where...
Well, that brings up another situation. People think dialysis isn't, you kind of at first glance say, well, that's really no big deal. I can sit down in an evening and spend 4 hours watching TV without really giving it too much thought. But it also means that you can't travel.
Right.
Because you can't just go to the States or some other country and say, I need dialysis 3 times during the week that I'm here. Yeah. It doesn't happen. No. And some of the countries that people like to vacation to don't even have dialysis as an option. In a small Caribbean country, for example, there may not even be a dialysis machine that's there. So it makes your travel, obviously you're kind of hooked into somewhere in Ontario.
Right.
Even then, unless it's an emergency situation, you can't really go to another dialysis clinic even, can you?
No. I mean, I'm connected to this, the Mackenzie Health. They have a satellite office. And like before, when I was on dialysis 20 years ago, they didn't even have these satellite offices. So that just goes to show you that more and more people are being diagnosed with kidney problems, meaning that they need more dialysis clinics. So
and I know that in small towns in Northern Ontario, for example, they will have volunteers who drive people to their dialysis, because it can often be a 4-hour drive to get to a place that has dialysis.
Right.
So when you're in Haliburton at your cottage, there is no dialysis facility at the Haliburton Hospital, is there?
No, there isn't. Yeah. So
you would have to go to Peterborough, I think, is your closest.
Right, and that's a good hour away from the cottage. So so
not more.
Yeah, so it's a matter of like if I want to go to the cottage, say for a weekend, like usually I would my treatments are Monday, Wednesday, Friday night. So say if I want to go to the cottage from Friday over the weekend, I would go first thing in the morning, and then
on Saturday.
On Friday. go to the dialysis on
yes.
Friday, and then we'd head up to the cottage, and then I'd come back, Sunday, or we could stay till Monday and come back from my treatment to be in Oak Ridges for Monday.
Right, and you can't take time off of your treatments either, because it actually has to be timed, because your blood is only going to last for so long without a functioning kidney, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like if I skip a treatment, I could get very sick, and like even, say if I didn't do dialysis for a week, I'd be critically sick. I think, I think it just happened so fast that, so that's why they say you need dialysis 3 times a week. What was the second time around, I was, very sick at the time. I had a lot of fluid on me, so they recommended 4 times a week. And I've actually talked to patients that go 5 times a week. So some of them, I guess their kidney function is just so bad that they need dialysis more often. So, but for most people, it's 3 times a week at a center.
So, what is the best case scenario for you right now?
Best case is that. If I can find a living donor, I would, get off dialysis, a lot quicker. The testing for a living donor is, quite extensive. It could take up to 6 months. It all depends on how, fast the papers are processed and that sort of thing. But they check you, head to toe to see if you're a living donor. They ask you about pre-existing conditions and that sort of thing. So they kind of rule out if you're healthy enough to donate, and then they put you through a whole bunch of tests. And I'm actually go through a whole bunch of tests as a recipient. So while I'm waiting on the list, they want to make sure that I'm healthy, even despite my kidney problem, that everything else is, that there's no other issues there. If there's, say if I have a heart condition or cancer or something like that, then that, might rule me out as a possible, to
recipient.
get another. Yeah, so they want to make sure that there's no other issues going on, because if there is, then, they have to deal with that first. So,
well, I guess they'd want to give a kidney, which is such a precious thing, to somebody who has a chance of using it, not to someone who is going to, their own body would destroy it very quickly, right?
Right, exactly.
Because we know people that we've actually talked to who had their kidneys for over 20 years. One individual, for example, it's 42 years.
Yeah, amazing.
Same kidney, the donor kidney. That's unbelievable.
That is, yeah, for sure. And for me to, have it almost 20 years, I thought, that's quite amazing. Or, even if I just had it for 10 years, that would have been, something else too. And because, some of the nurses I've talked to said, after, 7 years that they see the same patient again. So, like a couple of the nurses that are at the clinic that I'm at now, and my kidney doctor, they knew me from 20 years ago, and I think they're glad that my kidney lasted that long. I think they would have been, pretty surprised if I came back a lot sooner than that. So to be, to see them again, I think that helped me with my adjustment doing this the second time around, knowing that, these nurses know me and the doctor knows me, and because that was pretty sad, I think, to realize that my kidney was my sister's gift to me was failing, and that I'd have to go back on dialysis again, and so that it took some adjustment to realize that I'm gonna have to go through this all over again.
But you're determined that if a kidney comes your way, you're going to give it your best shot.
I sure will, definitely, for sure.
Darn right.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, thank you for sharing your story with us. You're always very forthcoming in your depiction of what is going on, and when I push you to tell people what dialysis is like, it's because you do make the best of every not so great situation, and you do manage to find the good in everything, and I just find it wonderful that you can do that and appreciate the camaraderie and the social aspect of being on dialysis, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Oh, thank you so much.
In your journey, and I know you have a Facebook page. What is that Facebook page called?
It's called Jason Rumball Needs a Kidney. So you can.
There's an imaginative title.
So that's why you can find me on Facebook. If you don't have me on Facebook already, just find me on Facebook there. And
Jason Rumball Needs a Kidney.
Jason Rumball Needs a Kidney, and you can I also have a radio show called Block Party. Like I'm the producer of this show, Freshwaves, and I also have a show, Block Party. So just search Block Party with Lil J, and You can, if you like some good dance music, you can tune into my dance music show there.
Okay. And for the rest of the Organ Donation Awareness Week, you will be the man behind the board working on the shows, and we're very blessed to have you, and we wish you all the best of health and continued good success, and we hope that you find a kidney. You've been listening to Fresh Waves, an interview with Jason Rumball, who is our technical producer on Fresh Waves. Stay tuned for more organ donation awareness stories on Fresh Waves. We will be talking with donors, recipients, and the administrative people who handle the whole process of organ donation. This is Organ Donation Awareness Month on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson.